These are the books I was excited to read in 2025 that I ended up hating. Ranked from least disappointing all the way up to the book I actually hated, so get ready to see me lose my mind. Now obviously hate is a very strong word. I actually think there's only one book this year I've actually hated. But let me talk about the books I was so hyped for, or the authors I was so hyped to check out, that just left me feeling a bit bleh. So I do apologize if I will be a bit negative in this video. This reading year has been filled with highs, like for example, I'm reading Demon in White at the moment. This book is incredible. I think this will become my favorite read of the year. But it has also been filled with several lows, and I need someone just to chill and talk about what hasn't worked amazing this year. Now obviously if you want to know what my favorite books of the year are, then I have or will soon post my top 10 books of the year, because I have been reading some absolutely incredible reads as well. Alright, let's start with the least disappointing of all the disappointing books I read. So I've actually checked out 2 different authors this year that I was like, I need to give these authors a read because I think they'll be amazing. First one, Gavriel Kay. I started my reading year with a book called A Brightness long ago, and then recently I read a book called Written on the Dark, which is his most recent release. Granted, I know that these 2 books are not his most famous or most loved works out there, but both of these books just gave me very similar feelings. I stepped into these books and I just felt like, mate, this author, he knows how to write. His prose is beautiful. The way that he crafts the plot is so interesting and different from anything I've ever seen before. A lot of the characters have so much intrigue and mystery to them. The world building is done really well because it's set in our world. There's usually like some really soft magic elements. It did a lot of things that on paper would literally be like the best thing ever, something that I would absolutely adore. But both these books just made me feel like deflated. I enjoyed the first 100 pages in both of these books, but the more and more I got into it, the more I just felt like I'm really sure what's going on here. I don't find this interesting. And I just lost interest at the halfway point, and then I just forced myself all the way to the end, and when I got to the end, I was so happy it was over. There's just something about like the emotional impact of these novels, it just didn't hit. And I just think the way that guy Gavriel Kay likes to tell this story, he doesn't tell it in a very like A to B kind of way, but like there's lots of side characters or characters you think are side characters and then end up becoming a huge part of it. He'll often go on these weird tangents where something like random happens, then spirals out to be this massive thing. All elements and things I usually like, but there's just something about Gavriel Kay, it just didn't hit the way I wanted it. But I gave both of those books 3 stars, so it's not like I hated them. And I do still want to check out The Lions of Al Rassan to see if maybe there are some books out there that I will absolutely love, because I know at least that book is really loved on booktube. Yes, I'm sitting on the floor. Now the next author I knew I had to check out this year, because he's kinda like an author that is kinda like a booktube darling. I'm not saying he's the most popular author out there, but you know, a lot of people are really big on this author called Robert Jackson Bennett. I felt so confident that I would love The Tainted Cop. I also read a book called Founderside, the first book. That series is probably even more popular for him. I was so confident that I was gonna love this author because I've heard he has unique world building, accessible writing with fast pacing, basically like a Brandon Sanderson light kind of author, and obviously, you know, I love Sanderson. And the only way I'm able to describe my experience with both of these books is that if I had read these books 3 years ago, I think they would have become favorites of mine. They have great characters, the pacing is just crazy, like you know, like a fun action-packed movie. The writing is really accessible, and I think that's where the comparisons to Brandon Sanderson make sense, because the writing just, I mean, it's not that, you know, it doesn't evoke emotions like Robin Hobb will. It really helps you to just like speed through these different stories that he's writing. I also found Founderside to be quite reminiscent of the Final Empire in a lot of different ways, with the heist element, the hard magic system, all those things. But it just felt like I've seen that, and I've seen someone do it slightly better, and I read so many other books since then, and how do I even describe this? Genuinely, Robert Jackson Bennett, both The Tainted Cup and Founderside, they were not bad books, but I ended up giving both of them 3 stars because they just didn't hit the same. So I think my main takeaway is that he may not be the author for me, but he has another series, like I think the first book called City of Stairs, that I really want to check out. I know Patrick Leo said, I think he said that is his favorite series from this author, and I'm not fully ready to give up on Robert Jackson Bennett just yet, because his imagination and creativity is definitely there. He's a good author, but yeah, it's just like that emotional punch I need, something that will blow me away. It just wasn't there. But I think he'll be an author I will suggest to loads of, you know, people that are looking to get into fantasy, because they are great for that. They are definitely great. So yeah, definitely a bit of a letdown. I thought after this year I would have discovered 2 new favorite authors, Gavriel Kay and Robert Jackson Bennett, because everything I'd heard about this author, they just sounded like they would be right up my alley. 4 books read by those 2 authors, and I've given all 4 books 3 stars. Not bad, but not that memorable either. Alright, let's get to something that was worse than those 2. Yes, I am allowing you to see some of the mess in my background, and I'm still sitting on the floor. The next one that was definitely a bigger disappointment than Robert Jackson Bennett and Gavriel Kay was Lavondyss by Robert Holstock. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, then you know that Mythago Wood was one of my favorites of last year. I loved it. And Robert Holstock, he's written like 6 or 7 books in that universe. I think they're all standalones. And a lot of people said like, you need to check out the sequel. It's even better than Mythago Wood. And I picked it up, and guess what? The first 100 pages were amazing. The start of the book was so much stronger, it was more impactful. It was like the character as well, our protagonist was more compelling. And if you're wondering what this universe is even about, it's basically we're set in a weird, strange, haunted forest kinda, that is filled with these mythagos that are basically like these legends that kinda can become alive. It's really strange, but the reason why I love the first book so much is because it reminded me, the feeling reminded me of what I felt when I read Pyranesi by Susanna Clarke, which is one of my favorite books of all time, because it has a weird atmosphere, intrigue. You're not really sure what's going on, but you don't really mind because it just draws you in. The second book, the first 100 pages, definitely did that. I was like, this will be my favorite book of the year. But then it just became too weird, and it just started to drag a lot. So where do I even start? Our protagonist, I don't feel like goes through massive growth. The quest she's on, I just started losing interest in, and then as I said, it just becomes too weird. I think almost like Robert Holstock, he knew that he's good at these, you know, at crafting weird and atmospheric scenes, and he just turned the dial off to 1000, and it just became too much, and also just too long. This book is like 400 pages, and around 300 pages of them are just these like hallucinogenic, dreamlike, weird kind of writing. I think if the book was 200 pages, I would have loved it. It just was too long. It ended up being a massive disappointment. It almost put me in a reading slump. So yeah, Robert Holstock, still an amazing writer. I might still check out the 3rd book in this universe, but we'll see. But guys, check out Mythago Wood. It's a standalone, absolutely amazing. I think most of you will absolutely love it, especially if you like Pyranesi. Alright, the next one, and yes, I'm now standing up and I took off my cardigan. It was way too hot. The next one is on par with Lavondyss, so I'm not gonna say it's worse or better. If you watch my channel, then you know. Where is it? I'll grab it. The Age of Madness trilogy by Joe Abercrombie is one of the best trilogies of all time. Joe Abercrombie is a great human being, amazing writer, amazing character builder. I love this man. I will read, okay, I'm not gonna read anything he writes. I love that, love him. And obviously when The Devils came out this year, I just couldn't wait. I was so hyped. And let me make it clear, I know this book now is popping up on a video talking about my disappointments and most hated books of the year. I don't think that this is a horrendous book, but I was so confident. I would give it at least 4.5 stars, maybe even 5 stars, because, you know, Joe Abercrombie's last trilogy, Age of Madness, was some of the best writing I've ever come across, and you just think, this genius mind is gonna go into a new universe, he'll take everything he's learned since he became an author and just improve upon it and make the best thing ever. And the product was The Devils, which was fine. It was not amazing, it was not bad either, but it was fine. In my opinion, bang average, 3 stars. I will be reading book 2 because it's Joe Abercrombie, and there were still elements I absolutely loved, and I just believe that he might actually write a 5 out of 5 star read for book 2. But there's so many things here that this just didn't click with me in the same way as his other stories. Firstly, Joe Abercrombie has a huge cast of characters here, and if anyone should be able to pull off a big cast, it's the best character writer I've probably ever come across in the genre, Joe Abercrombie. But here it just felt there's too many characters. I didn't get enough time to get properly attached to any of them. And then the mix of the relentless pacing and pure chaos made it even harder for me to actually connect. And the weird thing is that when this book started and set up the plot, I was like, mate, we're back in it. Joe Abercrombie, he's pulling all the greatest elements of his writing together, setting up a great protagonist, bringing all these misfits together. I am totally on board. And then these characters go on this quest, and I just was a bit bored during the quest. I don't know what it was, but the humor didn't hit the same, and I just wanted this quest to be over. But when they finally, like, this journey comes to an end and they get to another place towards the end of the book, there's like 100 pages, I started loving it again. There was something about that quest that takes up 70% of the book that just didn't vibe with me, and it's so disappointing. It almost just felt like on this quest there's loads of almost side quests that just didn't really matter for the plot. I don't know how to describe it. I've actually made a full review 6 months ago where I was much more articulate about my thoughts about this book and everything, but if I should summarize, this almost felt like this was written to be a movie. I don't know if that makes any sense. If you read this book and you visualize it as a movie, you can definitely see, like, I think Joe Abercrombie had that in mind, and it's even been picked up by James Cameron since. But as a reading experience, it just didn't work as I had hoped. Still think there will be some viewers of mine that will absolutely adore this book because it still has fun characters, lots of chaos, lots of action, and it has some of the Abercrombie elements that it just makes him one of the best authors out there. I will be reading book 2 when it comes out. Still love you, Joe Abercrombie, if you watch this video. You're a genius. But I think for this one, I just had set my expectations too high. I just wanted more first law, I think. Oh, okay. We're getting into the hate territory now. I need to talk to you about 2 books I hated. Rebecca Kuang. I know she's controversial, and I know people have very mixed and strong feelings about her. I liked The Poppy War. I loved Babel. I loved Yellowface. And obviously, I was excited for Katabasis or Katabasis. I don't know how you pronounce this. Where do I even start? I have not talked about this on my channel before, I think. Oh, mate. Okay, Katabasis is, and it hurts me to say, but it was bad. 1 star? Probably. It's definitely my least favorite book of the year. Where do I start? Okay, so we basically have 2 main characters and then like a side character slash villain. Let's talk about the characters. So the first 2 characters we follow that go on this journey, they have no complexity to them at all, but the complexity and the depth we actually have to them just makes them absolutely insufferable. I could not stand our 2 main characters. They were so incredibly annoying. Okay, I'm gonna stop using descriptive words because they were not enjoyable characters. There is no reason given for you to root for these characters at all until page 300. At page 300, Rebecca Kuang decides to give us a whole chapter giving us a backstory to our female lead, and then a whole chapter, like a long chapter, giving us a backstory to our male lead. Those 2 chapters, especially for our male lead, were incredible. They added complexity to our characters. They made them compelling. They helped justify why they were the way they were. But you have to sludge through 300 pages of these characters being ridiculously flat and have no depth to them at all until page 300. I will never ever understand why Rebecca Kuang decided to wait so long to actually make these characters compelling. But the worst part is that after we're given this amazing backstory, our female lead, she doesn't grow at all. From the start of the book to the end of the book, there's almost no growth. I'm not talking about a book of 540 pages where a character is traveling through hell to save her professor. I am baffled because Rebecca Kuang is not a bad character writer. She's good at it. So that made it just horrible. Secondly, the world building. The magic system is semi-well explained, but we are set in hell. And I think that if you choose to make that as your fantasy setting, there are 10, 20,000 different ways you can make the setting really interesting. And I think Rebecca Kuang has tried with these different levels. There are definitely some like things that are interesting when you think about it, but what you end up having in this book is a setting that is, it just makes hell feel like the most boring and dry place where almost nothing happens, and it just sucks. I don't understand, because Rebecca Kuang is a genius. She has like a PhD from Harvard or Oxford. She has accomplished all these great things, and I read her other books, all her other books. She is a creative genius, but she somehow made hell feel ridiculously boring. I was just like, where is the action and color or something that makes this feel alive? It just felt like this bland desert. It sucked. Thirdly, the plot itself was just never, ever, ever, ever compelling. It just wasn't compelling at all. This is not spoilers, but our character, our female lead, Alice, right, that's her name, they go to hell to save their professor. They have their own motives for actually going and, you know, trying to get him back. But Alice's main thing is that she wants to be a analytic magician. I think that's her title. And it's incredibly hard to get jobs in this niche. It's like basically impossible. The only way she will ever get a career and job is by going and getting this professor back. But that is not compelling enough, in my opinion. She basically risks her entire soul to get a job. And when you think about how crazy that is, that makes no sense. And she never like second guesses like if that is a reasonable thing to do. And then you learn more about this professor. This professor is the vilest, most disgusting character ever. I can't go into the spoiler reasons. I'm sure some of you will still want to read this book. This professor is horrible. There's no reason for us to root for Alice to actually be successful on this mission, because that'll just mean she'll bring this disgusting human back. And then don't even start me on the conclusion of this novel, where suddenly she has grown and changed her mind about the thing that happens at the end, but we never ever get to see this growth happening. It makes no sense. And then this book is marketed as a enemies to lovers kind of book. That is misleading marketing, in my opinion. And I'm not into romance. I genuinely do not mind that this isn't an enemies to lovers kind of book. I don't mind, but why would you market it as that? There is, yes, technically an enemies to lovers kind of plot line here, but it's so minor. It's not like, that's like the fourth or fifth thing that happens in this universe and this book. Oh my gosh, when I read it, I was like, what am I reading? How is this so bland? Rebecca Kuang, she tries to do a lot of like clever things with like adding some philosophy in there, adding some history and all these things, but it just does not come together and make it an enjoyable read at all. Okay, that was my therapy session done. I still love Rebecca Kuang. I will read her other books, because the other 5 books I read I've loved, and I think maybe that's why I've taken this like more personally, because I just expected this to be another favorite of mine. I don't know, I literally don't know. Let's move on to my most hated reader of the year by far is Rejected by My Fated Maid. Look at that cover. Look at that cover. Oh, don't show it too long. I think I might get demonetized. Okay, this is obviously a joke. I was not excited to read this. I read that book for my video, reading books with 0 reviews on Amazon. I read 4 books in that video. All of them were horrible, but this one is not AI generated, which 2 of them were that I read. Awful. Awful, 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 awful. Genuinely a P-adult. I don't want to use the word, but it's a adult fun kind of novel. The plot made no sense, the characters made no sense, and there were just lots and lots of spicy scenes. Horrible, 0 stars, way worse than Katabasis. Compared to Katabasis is a masterpiece, let's say it like that. At the end of the day, 2025 has been a great reading year, and it's been a great year for me as well. I became a father, I started a new job, the channel has grown, and I still love books. But when you read books, you are bound to come across books that just do not work for you, and that's why I have this. I'm able to vent. My wife doesn't have to listen to me for weeks to just rant about books I don't like. So thanks for listening, guys, and I hope that most of the books you read this year have been amazing.